And so Bitcoin is the single most secure network in the world. It's the most secure database in the world. It's the most secure asset in the world. The way that you make it secure is through the extraordinary decentralization combined with the way that it converts energy into a very specialized SHA-256 hash function. So in order to attack that network, it would take extraordinary time and effort and energy and resources. It's pretty much the most secure thing we've got in cyberspace.
And what about people that look at that and go, yes, cool, you've built this amazing protective layer, but it comes at the cost of the environment?
The actual cost is, nominally 0.1% of the energy used in the world, but the economic value of the energy is not even 10 basis points. It's like 3 basis points. So you're talking about, like, it's almost, if you put it on a sheet of paper, it would be like a couple of dots, but you can't even see it. The overall energy generated in the economy is like 160,000 terawatt hours, and the wasted energy is 50,000 terawatt hours, and Bitcoin is 120 out of 50,000 wasted energy. So it really is insignificant as an energy load on the environment. But if you dig a bit deeper, you'll find that actually Bitcoin is much cleaner energy than all the rest of the applications. Cars, planes, trains, automobiles. It's pretty obvious planes use fossil fuels. There's no hope for them not to. Bitcoin doesn't. Bitcoin is actually something that runs on electricity. It doesn't run on fossil fuels. Most cars still use fossil fuels, and even electric cars are charged at charging stations that are charged with fossil fuels. So the environmentalists ultimately are going to focus upon the energy grid, and if they want to shut down fossil fuels or change the energy mix away from coal or something, they'll do that. Bitcoin is the highest value application of energy on a wholesale basis that we have in the world. There's nothing more valuable. There's no more valuable use of energy than Bitcoin. The latest generation of SHA-256 miners, they will generate almost 45 cents a kilowatt hour in value, which means you can take them anywhere on Earth to the North Pole. You can put a nuclear reactor on the North Pole and run Bitcoin mining from it. You can plug them into wind generators 1,000 miles out into a desert. You can plug them into geothermal on an island like Iceland, and you can generate 45 cents a kilowatt hour. The typical residential electricity cost is 13 cents a kilowatt hour. Industrial usage in the first world is 11 cents a kilowatt hour. And all of that energy has to be co-located with the factories and the people. Right? We don't have an application, an industrial application of energy like Bitcoin that you can put anywhere on Earth. So what's the result? The result is that Bitcoin is used to recycle stranded energy or wasted energy. If you have a hydroelectric dam and you have a lot of energy, but you don't have people to use it, well, the dam is generating energy year round, but the people don't need it, but maybe a few months a year, or maybe they don't need it in the evening. They just need it during the day to run their air conditioners. Like air conditioning is a great example of a cycling energy use. Bitcoin is a perfect energy battery because you can run it at night while the people are asleep and the air conditioning is off. And so you level out energy consumption on the grid, thereby driving down the cost of energy for everybody on Earth. And for any plant that would otherwise be decommissioned, you have a use for it if you don't want to decommission it. And of course, as you can imagine, the sun shines in the desert where people don't live, and the wind blows in places where people don't live, and volcanoes, and geothermal energy exists where people don't want to live. Those are 3 sources of energy that are all sustainable, renewable energy. But if you know anything about power engineering, you can't move electricity more than 500 miles on a grid, period. It's a hard stop, a hard limit. If you happen to find geothermal energy more than 500 miles from Manhattan, we don't need it. And newsflash, we've already got too much energy, right? So even if you found geothermal energy in the middle of Central Park, we still don't need it. And so what if I told you, Tom, I've actually got infinite free sustainable energy and it's 1,000 miles away from a city? What are you going to do with it? Well, the only obvious thing to do with it is Bitcoin mining. So Bitcoin is migrating to the ends of the earth to the most sustainable energy, which is also the cheapest energy, which is also the greenest energy. And it's a solution to the problem of how do we catalyze sustainable energy? How do we get green? It's also a solution to every country's problem. You know, you're in the middle of Africa with a waterfall and no industry. How are you going to lift your people out of poverty? Well, you plug, a turbine into your waterfall, you plug Bitcoin mining into the turbine, and now you have cheap energy that's green, that's plugged into a clean, hard currency exporter that pays taxes, that elevates you out of poverty, that's environmentally friendly. So I think it's a good story here. People just don't understand, right, just how powerful Bitcoin is as a force for energy sustainability.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like the attacks upon it from an environmental standpoint are relentless. And to be honest, I just sort of brushed them off based on the facts that you've given. It seemed like, wait, people just don't understand the narrative, or they don't understand the facts. They've fallen for a narrative. And until Elon Musk, who's sort of the king of clean energy, for the love of God, came out and expressed concerns over the environmental impact of Bitcoin. How is it possible, if everything that you just said is true, that somebody so into the world of clean energy could be against it?
I think we've got a lot of education to do. The industry hasn't published transparent statistics about the nature of the energy usage in Bitcoin mining because the Bitcoin miners are very decentralized. And so encouraging transparency and gathering all the data and publishing it, that will be helpful because there's a good story here. I think that the mining, the energy usage is not well understood. For example, 3 years ago, someone thought that energy was used in transactions. And then they thought, since energy is used in transactions, if we scale up the number of transactions, eventually Bitcoin will boil the ocean. And that wasn't true either, because the Bitcoin network never increases the number of transactions, and the energy usage is unrelated to transactions. And in fact, the energy usage is decreasing exponentially as the transactions scale in efficiency exponentially. But the model was flawed, and so people picked it up, and no one's published a better model. So we need to, and if you only spend an hour thinking about it, or spend a few hours, you might not understand the nuances. So I think that the industry needs to do a better job of transparently communicating the current usage of energy and transparently communicating how it's going to change over the next 20 years. Bitcoin energy usage, for example, is exponentially falling. The latest generation of miners generate 5x as many hashes for the same amount of electricity. So in fact, energy consumption decreases 80% per exahash.
Whoa.
I mean, it's massive. And then after the next halving, it gets cut in half again. And the protocol keeps cutting it in half every 4 years. And the technology advances are doubling it every year or more, right? And so if I double every year and I cut in half every 4 years, and the transaction efficiency is or transaction cost is only scaling with the log of the price. I mean, most people can't do the logarithmic math in their head, but if you actually, and they don't know the ratio between transaction fees and block rewards, but once you figure it out, let me boil it down to the summary. It's 200 basis points of the value on the network today falling to 120, falling to 70, falling to 40, falling to 20, falling to 10, falling to 7 basis points, going to 6, to 5, eventually getting to 5 basis points. And as it's falling to 5 basis points of the overall monetary energy in the network, the energy mix is rotating from more fossil fuel to less fossil fuel, and at the same time, the energy intensity is falling because the security on the network is coming proportionally more from the technology of the hashing miners than it is coming from raw power. And so there's a lot of things going on there. You know, if you're a journalist, you just write clickbait, right?